Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. And well, of course, you can always find us on Facebook and YouTube for our live shows, but we're also over on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and now also Rumble. So I really need to update my graphic right here. But yeah, you can find us in all of those places. Both TikTok and Rumble. We're trying to get 1,000 followers on both of those platforms. Because once we hit 1,000 on both of those, we can start doing live videos just like this, but from out in the greenhouse and different places. So once we do that, we can start doing a lot more live videos on location. This week, I wanted to kind of do a fall topic that is sometimes kind of overlooked, and that is collecting seeds. So, a big part of my fall gardening tasks is going out and collecting both flower seeds and also seeds for the garden. Now, last year I did an episode of Bob's Live where I collected flower seeds. So I collected cosmos and zinnias and a couple other different seed varieties and showed you how to winnow out the chaff and everything and collect some really nice seeds. Now, this year, what I thought I would show you is how I collect some garden seeds. So let's jump over and check that out. This afternoon I'm out here in the garden doing some cleanup, and what I'm getting ready to do is harvest some okra seeds. So I've had okra throughout the summer. We've ate a ton of it, but what I did is I left the plants here and left some of these pods to develop fully so I can collect the seeds and then replant them next year to get more okra. So let's take a closer look at how to collect okra seeds. So what I'm looking for are nice dry pods like this one. And I'll just come in with a pair of scissors, and they are kind of hard to snip off, but we'll give it a snip, and we'll go from there. Alright, now that I have a good number of pods collected, I can start getting the seeds out. And if I give these a shake, they sound almost like a maraca, and that's the seeds inside. So the easiest way to do this is to kind of work from the end, so the tip of the pod. And if I just start breaking it up like that, you start to expose the seeds. And they're arranged kind of in ribs around the outside of the pod. So if I pull one up like that, it helps get the seeds out. There we go. So that is all the seeds from just one pod. And that's about what you get in a seed pack. So from just a few pods, I ended up with an entire cup of seeds. And what I'm going to do is take these inside and just basically let them sit on the counter for a couple weeks to kind of dry out some more. And then I'll put them into a container to store them. Now, something handy that I use for smaller amounts of seed are empty pill bottles. So everybody ends up with empty pill bottles, or well, if you're my age, you do. And these make a great way to store seeds. However, I definitely have more here than will fit in a pill bottle. So something that I'll probably use for these is either, say, a small mason jar or just a Ziploc baggie. And then what I'll do is I'll store them in the refrigerator. And storing them in the fridge, that keeps them cool. It slows down their metabolism and keeps them viable for longer. So an important thing to keep in mind is that collecting seeds like this only works if the plants are heirloom plants. So this is an heirloom variety of okra. So I know every year if I plant this seed, I get the exact same plant in return. Ooh. Okay, falling over there. At the opposite end of the spectrum, we have plants that are hybrids. So this variety of tomatoes that I grew this year, they're a hybrid variety. So if I planted these seeds, I wouldn't get the same tomatoes back. I would get a mix of the two varieties that were used to make this hybrid. So you always have to make sure that you're using heirlooms. The pole beans that I grow are an heirloom variety that's actually called Lazy Housewife. And the bean makes these pretty little pearl shaped beans. But what I do with these is I'll leave these on the vine until they dry out, and then I'll harvest the pods, empty out the beans, and just store them dry. So next year I can take some of those, set them aside, plant them, and get more beans. But the rest of them I can cook just like any other dry bean that you buy in the store. So growing seeds that you can collect is one of the most economical ways to garden. I mean, for every seed that you get, you're getting 100% return on that plant. So with an entire cup here that's worth multiple seed packs, you know, I've got plenty of seed here for the next season. Yeah, and as I said in the video, every single seed that you collect is a 100% return on that plant. So with something like okra, you're easily from one pod getting pretty much the exact same amount of seed that they have in a seed pack. So I planted one seed pack this year, and just from a handful of pods, I probably got the equivalent of like 20 seed packs. So next year I could do an entire field of okra if I wanted to. Now, of course, with growing your own seeds and collecting them, I noticed that some of the seeds that I collected, like, they might not be viable. So usually when I collect seeds, I'll either sow them in trays so I can see which ones didn't sprout, or if I directly sow them into a row, I'll sow them a little bit thicker or a little bit closer together than I normally would with like store-bought seeds. Because with store-bought seeds, you know, they have quality controls in place to make sure that you're getting the most viable seed possible. And collecting them at home, you just don't have that. I know with the pole beans that I collect, I have to sort through them by hand and look for any bad spots, and then I'll discard those beans. And with the ones that I planted this year, I had them in storage for almost 2 years. And generally, they say, oh, you can only store them for a year before you need to cook them or plant them. And I last grew these in 2020. I planted them this spring, so they were in storage for almost 2 years. And they were still good. I ran a germination test where I wrapped some of them in a moist paper towel and stuck it in a dark place to see how many would germinate. And out of 10 seeds, 9 of them germinated. So with planting a row, I had a really good germination rate. Yeah, Patty says, cool, I've never had okra. And okra, some people are kind of off put by it because depending on how you cook it, it might have kind of a slimy texture. Personally, what I like to do is I like to fry it. Now, normally, like at a restaurant, if you get fried okra, it'll be breaded. What I do is I pan fry it, but I don't use breading. And the key with that is to start off with a really hot pan and sear both of the cut sides. And what that does is it seals in those juices so you don't get that slimy texture. And the other thing is to cut it when it's still young. Because if you wait too long, the pods get hard because they turn into those dry pods full of seeds. And that's what you're eating. So cutting them when they're about 4 inches long, that ensures that you have a tender pod. And yeah, I really love okra, so I like it fried like that. I do stick it in soups. It will kind of thicken up a soup and make it kind of gloopy. That's just the nature of okra. But to me, the flavor is like it has a really nice vegetable-y, planty flavor that's really good. And it's also super easy to grow. If you have problems with deer in your garden, plant some okra. They won't touch it because the leaves have little spines all over them. Now, this version that I grow, it's a spineless variety, but it still is really stickery. I don't know how else to describe it, but grabbing it up around the stem, it's still got some little thorny hairs on it, and it will poke you. And yeah, going in and picking it in the summertime, it would tear up my arms, but it's worth it. Yeah, Gloria says making her hungry. Yeah, okra, it's delicious. It's more of a southern vegetable. We have kind of a shorter growing season for it up here. But still, I planted this okra kind of in late June, and I still got a really good harvest from it this summer. Well, now that we're hungry, let's jump over to Christmas time. So we're heading kind of out of fall here at Bob's and into Christmas. So right now we've still got some mums and pansies available at our stores. But here pretty soon, heading into November and Christmas time, we're going to start thinking about poinsettias. And right now, our poinsettias are just on the cusp of starting to change color. So the color turn, it is dependent on day length. So as the days get shorter, that's what triggers them to change color. So I went up this morning and got some video of our poinsettias, and let's check out what's going on with them. Well, this chilly morning, I am here at our uptown greenhouse, where I am surrounded by a sea of poinsettias. About a month and a half ago, we were in this exact same spot when they were being laid down. And now we're right on the verge of them starting to change color. right before the holidays. And these poinsettias, we've actually been following them since June when they arrived as unrooted cuttings. So it's been a long road for these, and they're almost ready for the Christmas season. So let's take a closer look at some of them.
In this greenhouse we have a few different sizes. We have 6-inch pots on this side. Then down the middle aisle we have large decorator planters. And then over on this side of the greenhouse we have bigger 10-inch pots.
Here we can see the 3 different sizes together. So I've got in my hand one of the small pots, which it just has one plant in it that's been trimmed so it branches out. The 10-inch pots, I believe they have 3 stems in them that have been trimmed so they branch out. And then the bigger deco pots have even more. So based off the pot size that you get, you'll get a different number of plants, and that way we get a full looking container no matter what the size. Like our mums that we grow outdoors, poinsettias also don't like to get their leaves wet. And also, if you watered their leaves, you would get water spots and it wouldn't look that great. So what we use in the greenhouse, just like out in our mum field, is a drip tape to water them. So a good tip when you get your poinsettia home is to water it at its base, but also you want to let it drain out really well. So usually you'll get a poinsettia like this with a decorative foil around the bottom of it. You want to make sure that you remove that whenever you water the poinsettia and give it time to drain before you put the foil back around it for display. The holiday season is just around the corner, and these will soon be changing color, and we'll stop back up here to check on them once we end up with a beautiful sea of red poinsettias. And that is a quick update on our poinsettia crop. And as I said, we're right kind of on the cusp of them starting to turn color. So as they start to change, I'll be sure to go up and do some more update videos. Because eventually that whole greenhouse just turns into a giant sea of red. And then we also have some other colors mixed in, like pinks and whites and marbles and all of those fun variations. But for the most part, it turns into a giant red ocean. And, well, the last thing that I want to take a look at this week is the weather. And, right now it is a little bit rainy out here at Mason. So just a little bit ago, my window right here was completely covered in rain, and it looks like it's let up a little bit now, but it is pretty daggone chilly outside. Right now we're down around 45, and we're going to be dropping into the 30s tonight, and then tomorrow night we're going to be down below freezing. So we're going to have another really cold night. Now, if you get our newsletter and our weather alerts, I sent out a weather alert yesterday for the freeze watch that we had. Or well, I guess it was upgraded to a freeze warning. But now that we've had a good freeze, I'm not going to do any more warnings or watches. So you need to keep an eye on the weather. I usually in the springtime, if we have an unexpected freeze or frost, that's kind of a different thing. But right now we're at the time period where it's expected for this time of year. So I don't feel the need to to release a freeze watch or warning every time there is one. Um, so, yeah, we are into that time of year where we're going to start getting frost freezes. So, if you have mums that are still outside and we get a night with cold temperatures, make sure you bring them inside to protect them. That is, if they're not planted out in your landscape. If they are in your landscape, you can still cover them up and sort of protect them, and you might be able to get a few more weeks out of them before we just get too cold of temperatures for them to survive. And looking ahead, I lost my mouse there. Looking ahead, heading into the weekend, we're going to get another warm bump. So we'll be up in the 70s on Saturday and Sunday. So it's going to be another nice weekend to get out and kind of do some of that late fall garden work. And then that trend is going to continue into Monday and Tuesday, it looks like. And then we're going to take another cool turn kind of midweek. So, yep, that is our weather forecast. And again, I kind of do the weather forecast during the growing season. So, here, probably next week, I'm going to stop adding the weather forecast as part of the show, because during the wintertime, I don't really feel like it adds that much to our program. Because, yeah, we can't be outside growing stuff anyway when it's freezing cold. Of course, there's plenty of other garden tasks to do outside during the wintertime, but they're not as dependent on temperature and whether we have sunny days or rainy days. Well, that is all that I have for this week. And of course, if you have any questions about anything, drop it down in the comments on the video, and it might just make it into a blog post or another segment here on Bob's Live. And well, until next time, keep growing.